Hi all, welcome to the Next Gen SOC Breakout. The Security Operations Center market revenue is estimated to reach a 61.2 billion in 2025. We are joined by four very important vendors with leading technology for this high growth market. The names of the presenters I have is, where is my slide? I'm presenting together with Kirill Kasavchenko. He will kick it off, then followed by Lee Mepstead. Ashley Musk from Checkpoint will take over, and Ross Brewer will finish this breakout session. Kick it off, Carol. We have a packed agenda, so let's get it on right away. If anybody has any questions, please use the chat box, and we will come back to those questions.
Thank you so much. Yes, without further ado, let me kick off. So my name is Kirill Kasavchenko. I'm principal engineer in the office of the CTO of NetScout, whom you might know as the worldwide leader in performance assurance and service assurance. And due to acquisition of Arbor Networks back in 2015, NetScout is also a worldwide leader in DDoS appliances market globally. What I'm going to talk about today really is what's new in the DDoS space. What is going on in DDoS? How did COVID-19 affected the DDoS threat landscape? And I want to give all of our partners and our channel partners good stories and good talking points they can take to their end customers, raise awareness about what's going on in DDoS, and maybe find new opportunities. I'm not going to speak a lot about products. I'm really going to speak about what is going on in general. And the reason why this presentation is within NGSOC thread is because we believe DDoS is a hugely important topic for Security Operations Center. First of all, a DDoS attack might be a part of a larger targeted campaign. But second, with SOC specifically, it's important to have so-called situational awareness in terms of what's going on. Normally, Security Operations Center is focused on what happens within the organization and maybe has not that much view in terms of what's going on globally. And the good analogy here is weather forecasting. If you're at home where everything is silent, bright, and clean, you might assume that the same world behaves exactly the same way. And if you look outside of your window, you might see floods, you might see cataclysms, and so on, which have nothing to do with what you have exactly in your house. The same happens in security. It might be all okay and all running well in your organization, but outside there might be storms, and definitely you should be aware of this. Climate change, I think, is another possible analogy. We are getting more and more aware about the climate change happening, and even if in the place where you live, there is a less of impact of the climate change, still we are talking about the global situation. Same thing in security. Due to the growing number of IoT devices with almost absent security, we see more and more threats. So situational awareness is very important, and to raise the situational awareness, here are some interesting statistics and some food for thought when it comes to DDoS attacks. I'm going to start speaking about global attack trends so that you would see where the whole market is growing. Then I'm going to zoom in a bit and talk about EMEA specifically, what countries are attacked most of the time, what verticals, where you can find most of the business opportunities, whom you should be talking to, and so on and so on. Finally, there is an ongoing extortion campaign which started around August 2020, and we believe it's hugely important for you to be aware of this extortion campaign because a lot of our customers and maybe a lot of your customers have already received extortion emails. You want to have this conversation with them to understand how to mitigate this risk. I'll say a couple of words about what kind of data do we have and where our statistics come from. Arbor Networks has been providing DDoS mitigation services to a large number of largest world networks. As you can see, our telemetry is basically received from almost 400 of ISPs, internet service providers. We get this telemetry, the analysis, and we publish it time to time as NetScout Threat Report, where we talk about what's going on with DDoS, what kind of factors are there, what kind of significant events we have seen. No one else in the world has this amount of data with such a detailed granularity. We do. And going back to 2020, here is one slide that should maybe set a stage in terms of how the attack landscape changed. As the pandemic kicked in last year, and as we started and entered the first wave of lockdowns globally around March, we have seen a global uptick of DDoS attacks, and we entered so-called new normality in terms of attack frequencies, which means that each month we have seen more than 800,000 of DDoS attacks globally. And because of this record-breaking year, the overall amount of attacks has surpassed 10 million. So we have never seen that many DDoS attacks happening in the same year. So 2020 definitely was record-breaking. And trying to understand what exactly has happened, we have seen some interesting patterns. First of all, the largest attack we have seen was more than 1 terabit per second. It happened in Asia Pacific, and I need to say that it was not the largest attack we have seen ever, and it was also not the largest attack the industry in global has seen ever. The majority of attacks really are not outliers. We have to keep in mind that the majority of DDoS attacks are relatively small, less than 100 gigabits, so relatively is really a relative word here. They are still large enough to saturate a lot of pipes, and definitely pipes of your customers normally are less than 100 gigabits per second. Attackers have also realized that it makes more sense to make attacks more complex from the duration point of view, to actually make them shorter and generate pulse waves of traffic. Also, attackers started to combine different attack vectors. So we have seen attacks which have as many as 25 vectors at the same time, and which I think calls out specific specialized application and DDoS appliances providers, because it might be possible for a company to mitigate 1 or 2 or 3 attack vectors at the same time. But when the attack is getting that complex, when we speak about 20, 25 attack vectors at the same time, this is not trivial at all. To help our customers and to help the market understand this complexity, we were trying to see how we can visualize the vector thing on one screen maybe. And we thought that the periodic table of chemical elements might be a good representation. So you can take this information to your customers and speak to them about what kind of risks are out there, what kind of attack vectors they should expect, and basically how challenging would it be to mitigate this attack in appropriate time, so that the mitigation wouldn't take maybe minutes or hours, but it would kick in automatically just when the attack starts. And from the risk point of view, the risk is definitely there. Amplification vectors such as DNS or CLDAP or maybe NTP, they have more than millions of possible hosts outside in internet that can generate an attack against you. And as more and more IoT devices are getting connected to internet, this number unfortunately only grows. Now, what does that mean specifically to EMEA? What kind of attacks have we seen, and what kind of trends have we observed in EMEA specifically? The largest attack we have seen was slightly more than 500 gigs, 586 to be precise. And of course, there was definitely an attack frequency rising in EMEA in 2020. We have also seen that maximum throughput, packets per second, so to say, of attack is also on a rise. And at the same time, the average duration of attack was more or less stable. There's just 9% of slowdown in terms of the attack duration. So I think that correlates very well in terms of what Stuart was talking about. How does the EMEA market require more and more security tools and services and the threats out there? And specifically, this map should give you some interesting data about where most of the growth can be found. In the UK, You see that on the left screen side, the pink part of the chart is the data from 2019, while the red part of the chart is 2020. And definitely everyone can see a trend here. It only grows up. There are more and more attacks happening on a monthly basis. And I'm going to be speaking about verticals a bit later. In Germany, things are even worse. As you can see, 2019 was basically a very calm, a very silent year comparing to 2020, where at the end of the year, in November and December timeframe, we have seen almost 3 times more attacks comparing to the beginning of 2019. So definitely, it doesn't come as a surprise that according to IDC data in Germany, there is going to be definitely an increase of spend on security tools, because if other security markets, apart from DDoS, are growing in the same with the same direction and with the same pace, definitely we should expect more and more spends from our customers. France is also on the rise. As you can see, there is also a clear trend in terms of more and more DDoS attacks. And due to lockdowns, due to people staying at home, due to shops being closed and education being provided online, definitely there is a growing reliance on the connected world. So we see more and more cases where attackers are trying to disrupt this online presence just to make a statement, not necessarily for financial goals, but just to become more popular. Speaking about verticals, here is the data. So in terms of each vertical, you would see a graph which represents bars. Each bar is a month of 2020. I wanted to be on the slide so that you would pick up the trend we have observed in 2020 for each vertical. And to better understand what information means, what retail trade means, I suggest you double check Nike's definition of each vertical, so you can easily find this up in your favorite search engine. Information stands for data centers, service providers. Retail trade, obviously, is the online presence of retailers, and so on and so on. It's easy to see that there are few specific verticals where we see growing trends of DDoS attacks. Service providers, data centers, so the first vertical. Number 3, retail trend. Number 5, manufacturing. Number 8 is on the rise for sure. Healthcare and social assistance definitely sees more and more and more DDoS attacks. And this is the data for 2020, but believe me, in 2021, nothing has really fundamentally changed it. It still goes in the same direction. So I suggest to take this data, discuss with your sales team, and maybe approach the customers you have from that verticals to speak to them about DDoS protection. One additional story you could speak to your customers is DDoS extortion. What is that? The principle is quite simple. Attackers send an extortion email saying that they will launch an attack against the entity. And to make the attack stop, they ask to transfer some currency, something normally in Bitcoins. And normally the way it works is that the attacker would launch a demo DDoS attack, send an extortion demand email to highlight that the attack actually comes from this specific threat group and that they are serious about this. Finally, if the extortion is not paid, they move on and launch another attack, sometimes against their end victim, but sometimes against their service provider, or maybe against their DNS provider. So they make sure they somehow impact the online presence of their victim. And just to give you a few details about what specifically do we see in the ongoing campaign, which we labeled as Lazarus Beer Armada, and I'm going to speak about why we made this decision. First of all, here are the targets. It's mostly financial, travel-related, and healthcare organizations across the globe. Again, if you compare this to the industry data I've shown you before, it doesn't come as a surprise why financial healthcare organizations are under attack this time. They're not necessarily global. They can be mid-tier and regional. So these attackers, they are not really after large victims. They are after specific regional players that they can get some money from. The attackers are reasonably skilled, actually, because first of all, they perform pre-attack reconnaissance. They don't just go after your website, but they can attack non-trivial infrastructure, such as, for example, maybe your internet service provider pipe, or your data center pipe, or maybe your DNS provider. They monitor and pick up right inboxes, so they make sure that you actually get the extortion demand email. They use a lot of different attack vectors. I've been speaking about 25 attack vectors in the same specific attack. These guys are able to generate attacks which try to mimic and disguise themselves as normally permitted VPN traffic. Because everyone is at home right now, your operations might expect a lot of VPN traffic on a normal basis. So that's exactly what attackers are doing. They generate a lot of kind of VPN garbage attack traffic and try to overload your capacity with that traffic. They really have high attack cadence in terms of how many attacks they generate. So the attacks themselves are not large. They can go up to 300 gigabits per second, which by far is not the world record. But as I said before, this is normally more than enough for majority of our customers, and I think for majority of your customers. They continue to expand target population. So these guys are all after numbers. They want to target as many possible threats and victims as possible. And finally, to make some publicity, they claim to be from a well-known hacking group. Sometimes they pretend to be Lazarus Group. Sometimes they say we are Fancy Bear. You might have heard about us. Sometimes they claim they are Armada Collective, which is why we decided to group this all together and label them as LBA, Lazarus Bear Armada. So I'm not going to go into any further details, but you'll see my email address. And in case you're interested to get more details, please approach me directly, or also please go to our blog posts where we have provided tons of useful information that you're free to share with your customers. I'll mention what we can do about this in terms of products just very briefly. Historically, NetScout and other networks were trying to build a multi-layer DDoS prevention solution so that we could target all possible pieces, all possible customers, and we could prevent all possible threats. So we start with the on-prem solution, which is called Average Defense. And normally we also have sightline solution in large internet providers to make sure that customers can connect to service providers and utilize their backbone solution, their sightline solution. Finally, there is a cloud solution. So wherever you are in any part of the world, you're connected to any provider or using any cloud services, definitely we can find the right component to keep you protected. And all this is based on our global DDoS research, which is done by people from the ASID team, which we positively match with the ASI data from NetScout, the packet level data that that our NetScout customers get from the networks. So in terms of how it works, very briefly, AD sits on site and protects your on-prem assets. They might be VPN endpoints, and VPNs are getting huge amount of attack these days because everyone sits at home, and attackers realize that if you bring down a VPN endpoint, no one is able to connect, and a lot of people working from home are basically disconnected from the business. We also see a lot of attacks against firewalls, corporate resources, customer-facing applications. AD is able to mitigate those threats. To protect you from larger attacks, AD has to talk to someone who sits upstream. In our case, that might be a sightline solution in the internet provider. We have more than 300 ISP customers all over the world which have sightline. A lot of them are providing commercial services based on sightline. So there is a huge chance that your AD customer can connect to an ISP in the region that has got sightline and is able to help. We also understand that it's not everywhere the case, and some of our maybe smaller internet service providers require also some backup solution, which is why we have built our cloud, which has more than 14 points of presence globally and has more than 11 terabits of mitigation capacity. We are trying to make sure that wherever attack you're facing, we can protect. And you're very welcome to pass the same message to your end customers. Finally, should you want to get more data and should you want to understand some more details, please feel free to utilize our free of charge DDoS monitoring service called NetScout Cyber Threat Horizon. You can just log in, no registration is needed, and you can browse historical DDoS data and see what kind of attacks were there, what kind of patterns have we seen. You can do this for a specific vertical. So whenever you have a customer meeting and you go, let's say, to a healthcare customer or maybe travel agency, you can pick up the DDoS data which is specifically about healthcare or maybe travel segment, and you can bring this data to the meeting to support your statements. We also publish a lot of data in our blog and also in our threat report. So I provide here some links. Should you be interested, please feel free to download them. And with that, allow me to say thank you. I hope that was interesting. And should you have any questions, please feel free to hit me via email. I'm also going to check if you have got any comments and questions in chat. And I don't think we have any. So with that, I'm handing back. Thank you.
Hi, well, I hope everybody can see this. This is, my name's Lee Mepstead. I manage the EMEA channel for Firemon. So first of all, I need to give you the obligatory Firemon at a glance.
Sorry,
so,
Lee.
Yeah.
You have stopped sharing your presentation. If I could just ask you to present that again.
Okay, sure. I don't know what's happening. Can you try again? Video share screen. Share screen. What do I do here? Because I've only got one screen. I think that might be the problem.
No stress. Just share your screen as usual and then click into your presentation. And I'll let you know if it's all working.
Okay.
Just full screen.
Can you see it now?
Are you able to go full screen with your presentation?
Yep, sure. Any second now. There we go. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. You can continue.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Technical glitch. So the obligatory presentation around Firemon. So we've been around since 2003, so quite a long time, predominantly successful in the US. We've been in the EMEA market for some time, but we're really driving into the EMEA market to try and build on the success that we've had in the US. Plenty of customers worldwide, 1,700, strong in the Fortune 500 markets, strong in government, in finance, and especially in MSPs as well. And usually we're based out of Dallas and Kansas City in the US, usually obviously more on the West Coast. But we've got good steady growth of 40% year on year. And I think the most exciting thing for the partners that I'm talking to right now is the fact that our renewal rates are well above 95% year on year. So what do we do? The main thing we do is provide business agility to our customers. So we enable our customers to see everything, integrate everywhere, adapt to change, protect everything, and scale and perform. So when we say see anything, I think what the main point there is we allow you to manage your attack surface We eliminate leak paths. We ensure compliance to regulatory rules. And obviously, you can't protect against threats and attacks that you just can't see. We're able to see your network in real time. The Integrate Anywhere tab, well, that's more around, we help you with the spread of multiple security devices, predominantly in a SOC environment, but any large network equally at home. Usually, you'll have the inability to share data. Security devices usually have a very limited API integration, so we provide our own API, open APIs, all free of charge. The Adapt to Change tag refers to, I couldn't believe this, I've only been with Fireman for 4 or 5 months now, but 2 out of 3 of our business partners that we work with still rely on manual changes. And 3 out of 4 of the SOCs that we speak to often have to use multiple departments to agree to a single change. So that obviously leads to all sorts of mishaps around missing SLA times, risk, configuration problems, violations of compliance. Fireman's so deep within the system that it's even able to recommend changes to avoid risks and to avoid policy violations. So Protect Anywhere. So enterprises have more and more IP addresses, more and more data than ever before. They're just getting really, really complicated and very disparate. Obviously, that adds a lot of complexity to our customers' networks. Gartner even says that by 2023, 99% of firewall misconfigurations and problems will be caused by agreed changes. So changes that have been thought about, analysed, looked at, and still have some effect, some negative effect on the network. We help you manage not only firewalls, but also SD-WANs and SASE devices. We can simulate an attack, so you're able to see what effect that will have on your network and how to remediate against that particular attack should it happen. We also discover malicious systems on your network. And the last one, last but not least, is the scale and perform. So we are very scalable, from some of the biggest networks in the world down to fairly small, but networks that are very compliant. So we can look at 24 million IPs per hour. We can look at 15,000 devices at a time and analyze 25 million roles every single day. And we can do all that in real time. Excuse me. So quite often, you've got this constant battle between what's good for security and what's good for business. Often, if you lean too far on the business perspective, then you lose some of the security. And obviously, if you add too much security, it can have a detrimental effect to the running of the business. With a global pandemic going on, our customers and people that we're speaking to are using their technical staff for more disparate jobs. Obviously, a lot more people are working from home, so the role of their jobs and their tasks from day to day have changed, so we're able to help with that as well. The lack of visibility I've already spoken about. Obviously, you can't defend against what you can't see. And also, the unknown risks out there are difficult to manage if you don't know they exist. A few numbers. I'm not a big fan of numbers, but here's a few for you. 66% of organizations are actively trying to consolidate the number of security vendors they use. So that's a clear signal that they recognize the complexity of their networks and they're actively trying to do something about that. 79% of them say that they are somewhat or very challenging to orchestrate alerts from multiple vendor products. So the costliest threat to IT and business continuity is approved change. One of my sales colleagues often says this is almost like the death of 1,000 cuts. So 83% of the mistakes that are made out there are made on the firewall. And these are planned changes and changes that have consequences around the network. 70% of all unplanned network outages are caused by mistakes made by an approved change. And you'll often find that customers will experience service disruptions at least 3 times in a working year. So why do our customers use us? Well, obviously, we can really help in networks where there are heterogeneous security devices trying to work together. We can also help with those firewalls that have been in situation for some time with multiple redundant rules, but everyone's a little bit nervous to change those rules because they're not 100% sure of what effect that will have on their network. We help massively with compliance issues and with regulatory matters. We can automate change as well, so that allows your workforce to do other work, and we can take away the mundane changes that are often necessary on large firewalls. The changes you take place every single day, and they're just boring, but also equally dangerous. Network segregation is something that we do tapping very easily, so we are able to provide a single pane of glass for true visibility of your network, exactly what's there, how it's working, and how it's configured. We can help with migration to the cloud, so we see cloud instances exactly the same as we'd see any other firewall, even if it's on-prem. Now, who cares about this? Well, CISOs, obviously, head of cyber, SOC, NOC, data center managers, network infrastructure leads, security managers, and inventory teams. But why do they care? It's all about the visibility, the compliance, and the automation that we can offer. So we stop firewall misconfigurations, we help with staff shortages, we stop compliancy violations in their tracks, we enhance the existing systems that are already on the network. So I'm talking about SOAR devices, SIM, ITSM, and so on. And we remove the risk from bad configurations and bad changes to the network. So why do anything? Well, you're right. Sometimes this is a situation where the customer doesn't even know that there is a better way to do things out there. So often they don't have a way of centralizing policy alerting and reporting. They have no effective method to clean up policy. They have problems keeping down operations costs because their staff are doing other things and because their systems are not working 100% because the network's got bottlenecks and vulnerabilities and all sorts of threats to their network continuity. I say this again because I think it's an amazing figure. So 83% of firewall and cloud breaches will be caused by misconfigurations. Just not misconfigurations, but misconfigurations, changes that have been thought about and discussed internally by people a lot cleverer than I am. So stop compliance violations before they happen. Very, very important. And why FireMon? I mean, we've been around for 18 years or so. So we are what we feel is a complete solution. Right from multi-tenancy to change auditing, cleanup, optimization. We just do the full picture. What makes us different? Well, our scalability, I've really discussed that so we can see 24 million IP addresses an hour, 15,000 devices, and so on and so on. So that's something that's really important. So we work currently with some of the biggest retail industries networks in the world. Some of the biggest banks, some of the biggest retailers. But when we also work with fairly small networks where compliancy and staff shortages are a real issue. And this just makes their life a lot easier and adds a lot of value to the security teams and the network teams out there. The automation capabilities are your pace, your confidence level, and offloading mundane tasks. As I'm saying, right now, globally, there are all sorts of extra work taking place, and things that just weren't anticipated a year ago. Real-time visibility into hybrid cloud environments with a single pane of glass, so see everything. On-prem, in the cloud, different countries, wherever it might be, different technologies have the ability to see everything and affect everything. API flexibility, so allowing Firemon to access your devices, normalize the language that they speak, so we can understand it and then affect that traffic. So where's the money? What's in it for resellers who choose to work with a product like Firemon? So again, any of your customers that have got large, complicated networks, we fit straight out the box. Any of your customers that are talking about digital transformation, that are looking at working in the cloud, that have recently merged with other organizations where we now have disparate teams working on disparate technologies. You know, there might have been a big checkpoint house. Now they're trying to integrate that with Fortinet, Firemon, F5, and so on. That could become a real problem. And also multi-cloud environments, networks, segregation, and anything that you would normally find making a network manager or a CISO's life a lot more tricky than it already is. So our ideal customer, managed service providers are a great fit for us because of our multi-tenancy, multi-tier offering, large government, finance, SOCs, NOCs, so on. So we're a great fit for those. The more employees, the better. But as I said before, you know, as long as you've got 10 plus enterprise firewalls on your network that you're trying to manage, we're a very good fit. The ideal mix is a mixture of technologies: Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Fortinet, so on, WatchGuard. You name it, we pretty much work with those vendors. Mixtures of on-prem, cloud, virtual machines, and so on. Manual change management. So again, people that are still using spreadsheets to manage what they do around their network, or using freeware, or whatever they might be doing, we can definitely help with that. Industries. These are industries around EMEA. We're particularly successful in the financial space, so financial services and banks. But you know, we're also equally strong in retail, travel and leisure, oil and gas, so on and so on. So you know, again, the key there is complicated, large network deployments. We work out of the box with just about every large security and networking vendor out there. Very comfortable. So all our customers would be using a handful of these technologies within their networks, and making use of the free open APIs that we currently have. We've got strong alliances with Juniper, Checkpoint, F5, Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, and also recently Zscaler. Obviously, in the cloud, all of the big cloud providers are managed and covered by us as well. As if by magic, we've recently aligned a partnership with Zscaler. We're already seeing a lot of interest in that. Obviously, Zscaler is a company that's done very well for itself recently, and we see Zscaler as another firewall device, another device that we can report on, manage, and audit, and give visibility to as well. Who's our competition? Our main competition, I think, and seems to be spreadsheets. People not doing anything about the situation that they find themselves in. People that don't realize that there are technologies out there that can help them. Obviously, we have industry competition as well from Tufin, Algosec, and Skybox. If you see any of these vendors in an opportunity, then just know that the Firemon is a good fit for that opportunity or even existing customer. So I'm going to go into full channel mode now because I am the channel manager for EMEA, and I'm actively looking for partners in EMEA to build our market so we can equal the success that we've had in the US. So why bother to partner with us? We don't have a great deal of partners right now, especially in the UK and Europe. So we've got sales leads that are coming into us, and we want to make sure that we've got good partners that are tied in with us, that are capable of managing the opportunities that we're finding so we can grow and we can scale, not only scale internally, but scale in the partner community as well. I've been in the channel for a long time, so I understand how important the next point is. But we register every single deal. Every single new opportunity with a new customer is registered. That means we only work with a partner that found that opportunity. I know how important that is in the reseller community. I've been at the receiving end of this when you work very hard on an opportunity only to lose it at the last minute. But this is what we do. We register. It's a very simple process, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment. We have obviously access to marketing funds. I'm very keen to do specific events with new partners. Very interested to work on the strength that you have and to build on the success that you've had around selling security into some of your larger customers. There are no big hoops or jumps to jump through with Firemon. There's almost no cost at all. All our training and certification to elevate yourself from one partner tier to the next is all free of charge. It's all available on our website, and it's all pretty clear and concise. So we only work through the channel. Everything we do in Europe is through Westcon. Just about everything we do in the States as well is also through Westcon. So we've got a very strong relationship with the Westcon group, and they're obviously adding a lot of value to my day on a daily basis. So the partner deal program is pretty simple. You just go to our website, register as a partner. I will approve you, and then when you find an opportunity, you register it. It's not War and Peace. It's pretty simple, and that means that only you could get the correct discount for that, and our sales team, direct touch guys, will only work with you on that particular opportunity. It's literally as simple as it sounds. So what are the goals? Obviously, I've already said this. We need to protect you and your business. We want to increase the margin, and for you guys finding new opportunities is super important to us. We want to increase your margin. We want to protect you. We want to help you win new business. There's a minimum deal size of $20,000, but I've not seen a deal that small yet with Firemon. Most of our deals are a lot bigger than that. They're all registered for 90 days, and we can extend them. It just means that you've got that peace of mind that you can come to us early on with an opportunity, and we'll protect you. Kind of touched on this again. So we have a sales course, which is a 101 exam. That's all online, all free of charge. I've passed it. It's not that difficult to do. The 201 is more pre-salesy, and the 301 is a boot camp. That's self-paced, but that's more for integration work and services, and not required for our partnership tier levels. We've really got a spiff on the go at the moment. So I spoke about the deal reg. So find an opportunity with us, a new opportunity with a new customer, and the sales guy that finds an opportunity. This is win or lose, by the way. So anyone who finds an opportunity with us of a certain size, so over $20,000, with a new customer, a brand new opportunity, that's $1,000 to be shared between the salesperson and the technical person aligned to that salesperson. Obviously, I've got a lot more details for that, and if you need to know more, then you can speak to your Westcon rep. And that is me. Now, I can't see if there's any questions. There's a few questions. The question here is, what is the edge of firemen amongst competitors like AlgoSec? Do you think the full automation is the preferred environment? So why yes? So I think our main difference between our competition is our scalability, our automation. We do a lot of automation straight out of the box. We also offer multi-tenancy, which our competition can't do. And I think that's the key, yeah. So scalability, automation, and multi-tenancy. I think those are our key performance differentiators. I hope that answered the question. Thanks, and I'll pass you back to the studio now.
Hey guys, my name's Ashley Musk and I work for Checkpoint Software Technologies. I work within the UK channel and I've been asked to speak to you guys today about some of our vision for the next generation of SOC and the SOC of tomorrow. So a big thank you to all of you for joining and a huge thank you to the Westcon team for organising such a fantastic event as well. So I just wanted to start with a kind of a state of the nation. So 2020 was an extremely challenging year in a number of ways. And you know, that includes for the security industry. We saw a huge rise in remote working. And obviously the remote workers have different considerations. When we're looking to secure these remote workers, we have different considerations from when we're looking to secure people on premise behind our big safe firewall. And interestingly, last year we also saw the SolarWinds incident. Now, this is particularly interesting to someone like myself because for a long time the Checkpoint message has been, you know, traditional security systems aren't set up to catch these kind of advanced persistent threats. And you know, that's completely what we've seen. We saw in the SolarWinds incident, we saw a multi-staged, highly sophisticated, advanced persistent threat. So that means that many organizations are looking to move to a SOC methodology to be able to understand these threats and how they're affecting their organizations. So what is a SOC team? A SOC is a security operations center, and generally they'll be manned or operated by SOC analysts. Now, it's the job of the SOC analyst to take in logs from all of the various sources that they can. So this would include firewalls, endpoints, switches, IoT, etc., etc. And what they're going to look to do is to hunt through those logs to uncover any threats that are dwelling just below the surface. So the job of a SOC team is not an easy one. As we can see from the stats on screen, that a typical organization of just 2,000 users is going to be generating over 10 million logs every day. Now that equates to around 3.6 billion logs each and every year. That is a huge challenge just in carving out the manpower that's required to analyze those. And this problem is only going to be compounded as we add more and more solutions into our organizations. So for example, SaaS applications, public cloud, IoT, all of these more new age solutions, effectively, as they come in, they're going to be generating their own logs and they're going to be further compounding these problems that our SOC teams face. So our SOC teams face a number of challenges. So as we suggested, the information overload is a big one. If we're throwing too much information at these guys, you know, we're actually slowing them down and making their job much more hard. We also the security industry faces a huge problem in terms of skill shortages, and SOC analyst is one of the areas that we see a particularly, you know, there's a big skill shortage around qualified SOC engineers. When we start to throw too much information at these guys, they become stressed, they become overworked, and this actually impacts their ability to deal with events. So the Infinity SOC is Checkpoint's solution to address some of these problems and help move from our traditional SOCs into our kind of next generational SOCs. Now, if I was to kind of top line the the goal of the Infinity SOC, what we're trying to do is to bring all of the solutions and all of the tool sets you'd need to monitor, investigate, and respond to an incident into a single platform. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, I would have clarified on some of the ways that we can help you to do that. So one of the pieces that I mentioned on the previous slide was investigation. And obviously to investigate, we need intelligence. Now, Checkpoint operate one of the largest shared threat intelligence databases globally. It's called the Threat Cloud. And effectively, this is the way we can always stay on the cutting edge of the cyber landscape and of different threats that we see. The scale behind the Threat Cloud is absolutely astronomical. As you can see from the stats on screen, we have around 86 billion transactions each and every day, and we're connected to over 150,000 customer networks. Now, all of these various customers around the world are going to be sharing information with us. And we're also feeding the Threat Cloud with a human level of research as well. We have a huge team, Checkpoint Research, and they're going to be feeding it with insights from their research also. Now, all of this data is used and allows us to stay on the cutting edge of the threat landscape, and it can be used by our SOC teams in a number of different ways. So if we were to look at it in a kind of a reactive way, we could allow them to pinpoint attacks much, much faster using this wealth of intelligence. And if they wanted to move to a more proactive way of working, this would allow them to pinpoint and identify new malicious domains or IOCs much, much quicker than if they were trying to piece these IOCs together from various information sources dotted around the place. Now, one of the other things I mentioned on the previous slide was also precision. And the Infinity SOC is hoping to address some of these challenges of precision within our typical SOC. So if we remember back to the scale of a typical organization of around 2,000 users, they were generating a lot of logs, and this equates to around 60 million logs every week. However, a lot of this is going to be noise and isn't going to be very eventful or very interesting for our analysts to go and do some investigation upon. If we can, rather than just present them with a big list of logs, if we can start to say, it looks like from these 60 million logs, we're seeing 3,000 malicious activities, we can start to correlate some of the logs and start to piece some of the additional information they might need together to make their job that much easier. And we can take that one step further. When we can correlate all of these 3,000 malicious activities and say that all of these are coming from just 40 machines, maybe their endpoints, maybe their servers, we've made their job that much easier once again. So rather than sending them to go and investigate 3,000 incidents, they can now just go and do some investigation on 40 machines. And we can enrich our lives that one step further again if we start to understand the assets which have already become infected rather than the assets which are just being targeted or are having scans run against them. We'll also look to prioritize events that we notice within the network. So on this example, we picked up a few different malware families, and we've also got different confidence levels and different severity scores for each one. So in this instance, what we're suggesting is TrickBot needs to be dealt with much, much quicker than the lookalike domain that we have a low confidence about on the third one down. So I've just prepared a short video that I was hoping to take you guys through next. This video is not like a conclusive demo. We're just doing some kind of basic investigation of a particular threat. So if we could tee that video up now, that would be fantastic. Thank you everyone for joining this portion of the presentation. I've just logged into the Infinity portal. For those of you who haven't logged into the Infinity portal before, I'd highly recommend going and creating yourself a free account. We host a raft of services here, including Firewall as a Service, CASB, and cloud security. It's completely free to register an account, and it's a great way to get hands-on with our technology. So this is the primary Infinity SOC dashboard. Now, as we can see, we have 10 gateways connected to this tenant. Now, they'll be sharing data with the Threat Cloud and with Infinity SOC, and that will allow us to analyze any threats we see, as well as analyze logs further and try to use our robust intelligence. We'll also get a really nice breakdown of the number of assets that we've seen targeted within our organization, and a really cool breakdown of the number of unique malware families that are currently at play within our estate. Now, I'm just going to navigate to the threat map. The threat map is a really powerful tool for understanding any live threats that we're seeing within your organization. And it won't just tell us that we're seeing a threat, it will also tell us any assets or any hosts that are exhibiting signs of that infection. So we can see that this botnet has got a number of our assets communicating with it. And we've also got a host communicating with some form of the SolarWinds exploit. So I think that would be a quite interesting one to investigate for the purposes of today. So I've just clicked onto the incident, and this will take me to the asset that we believe is infected with some form of the Sunburst exploit. So I can see a number of connections out to this known CNC server. We can see, over 5,000 connections out to this global networking issue. And we'll also see any connections it has previously made. Now, I also get a really nice breakdown of a very nice simple description of the malware that we've seen, as well as the source IP that this threat was discovered from. Now, if I navigate to the Activity tab, I can see a timeline of the events that have caused this machine or this host to become infected. So we can see that a number of the connections have been related back to the Sunburst or to the SolarWinds exploit. And these have been made, a very large number of connections have been made out to these malicious servers. Now, it's great to be able to inform us about an attack, but ideally we would also like to be able to remediate it, remove any signs of that infection from our network. Now, the Infinity SOC is also going to give us a really powerful mechanism to do this. So, as we can see, we'll get step-by-step remediation instructions for how to, delete any signs of that malware. So we're being recommended to disconnect the asset from the network so that we can't have any lateral spread. And then we're also being advised to download a small client to clean any signs of malware from the machine. Now, this is available in Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. And this is going to be a very lightweight version of our Sandblast agent technologies. That's our advanced EDR, and that can strip away any signs of malware that we've noticed in that environment. Now, I'm just going to traverse back to the Intelligence tab. And as we can see, we've seen a number of connections out to this known CNC server. However, we don't just tell you that about known CNC servers, we're also going to give you some very powerful investigation tools that you could help to identify CNC servers that your assets are potentially communicating with. So I'm going to navigate to the investigation tab on the left-hand side. I've just copy and pasted that CNC server that one of our assets was communicating with. If I paste this into the investigation tab, I can then pull back any intelligence that Checkpoint have against this domain. Now, we'll pull back Checkpoint's proprietary intelligence, but we'll also pull back some open source intelligence from Twitter and from Google to find out what our peers are saying about this particular threat. We can also see the geolocation map. So this is going to give us a really good indication of where this malware or where this exploit has been most prevalent. So as we can see, it's been extremely active in Canada and the US. Now, because this is a domain, I can also interrogate any register information that Checkpoint have on this domain to understand who owns it, where it's registered, etc., etc. So we can see this has been obfuscated, so it's going to be quite difficult to understand, who registered this. And another really powerful feature is we can also actually query this domain in VirusTotal to understand what our peers in the field know about this particular threat. Now, it's great that we have all this investigation tools and we can tell you about this threat, but obviously the Checkpoint mantra, where possible, is always to prevent rather than to detect. So within this platform, we'll also give you a powerful mechanism to actually push these indicators of compromise out to your gateways that you have connected to the Infinity SOC. Now, I want to trigger this protection in prevent mode. As we said, that's a part of the Checkpoint mantra. And I can also set the particular blade that we want to trigger on, as well as the confidence and the severity level. Now, I'm going to leave the expiration date as 10 years in the future, as hopefully this won't be, we won't still be dealing with the SolarWinds vulnerability in 10 years' time. And I can now push that out to any gateways that I have connected to the Infinity SOC. Now, if I navigate to the IOC management window, just on this left-hand side below the investigation tab, we can see this, the IOC that I've just pushed out is now present here. Now, if it's not a Checkpoint gateway that we're working with, I could actually use a third-party threat feed to take these insights and pass them to a non-Checkpoint gateway as well. So as long as you're working with a third-party gateway that can receive, these threat feeds, these custom threat feeds, we can simply take them from here and push them into another system. thank you for joining me on this part of the presentation today. I'm now going to continue with the slides and answer any questions that we might have. Great. So again, guys, I'd just like to highlight that that wasn't an exhaustive demo. There's a load more capabilities that we have inside the Infinity SOC toolset. So that includes like external domain scanning, etc., etc. Because of time, I didn't want to run too much of this session as a demo today. So that's about it from me. I hope you found the session useful today. We've got a really powerful customer testimonial that's on YouTube. So we've got a tiny URL there if you wanted to check that out. And we've recently done a lot of work on updating the checkpoint.com Infinity SOC page as well. So I've got a couple of minutes left, guys. If anyone's got any questions, please drop those into the comment sections and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'd just like to thank you all again for joining us today, and thank you to the team at Westcon for arranging such a fantastic event.
Hi, if you could just share my screen, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me just start my presentation here. So thank you very much, everybody. I really want to just spend a few minutes with you. The time, I've lost a couple of minutes here. Ashley was really good on my last session. He managed to get some time back on this session as well. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. This is the UK track, so hopefully you can pick up what I'm saying at speed. But my name's Ross Brewer. I am the General Manager and Vice President for Attack IQ in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, as well as the Asia Pacific and Japan regions. So what I wanted to talk to you today is about security optimization, about a security optimization platform. And other words that you want to look out for in your customer base are things like breach and attack simulation, BAS, that's what our sort of sub-market's known as, or continuous security control validation, or security instrumentation. These are other terms that are bandied around. So I would encourage you to listen out for those terms. And what I'm hoping to show you today is a sort of a blue ocean opportunity where you can have a new conversation with your clients and new clients that can help you either attract new clients, cross-sell, upsell your existing clients, or sell more services revenues, or more security or more managed security services revenues. So let's touch on the challenge that our customers are facing. It's multifaceted. So our customers have rapidly moved to remote working. They've rapidly moved their cloud adoption projects forward. That's sucked up a lot of budget. It's moved a lot of resources, and it's also expanded the attack surface, and it's put customers in a position where their security teams are not in the office, they're not near their colleagues, and they're not as effective and as efficient as they were. And the sort of criminals and adversaries are doubling, quadrupling their activities. So it's made the whole thing very challenging. So this has really led to three strategic imperatives within the organization. The first and foremost is that organizations are really starting to take a different approach. Over the last few years, we've had this a risk-informed GRC, governance, risk and compliance, top-down compliance checkbox mentality, whereas organizations have realized that's not working. What they really are starting to do now is to change their view to one where they're looking at their networks through the eyes of the hackers. So this is called a threat-informed defense. So you look at what the hackers are likely to do, and then you make sure that you get to those gaps before they do. And the second imperative is that you make sure that I'm just checking time here, you make sure that your customers are deploying sort of next-gen security, defense in depth capabilities to ensure that they can defend their networks. And this is what you're sitting and talking about with Westcon and the Next Generation Security Group as part of this conference. But the most important and the fastest growing area in the industry at the moment is really around the exercising and the evidencing of the organization's security program effectiveness. Now, some of you are in sales, so I'm going to talk about control validation. So just to explain what a control is very quickly, a control is either a security technology or a configuration that is designed to block, stop, or monitor for a particular activity. So a firewall is a control. Now, why are controls important? Because in 82% of the breaches, according to Verizon, the security technology or the control was available, but it failed. Why did it fail? One, it was either didn't do what it was said on the side of the tin. The vendor had missed something. Secondly, it wasn't configured or operationalized correctly. Or thirdly, and most commonly, there was a breakdown in the communications from the security control to the SOC to the SIM, or the analyst missed it, or the managed security service provider missed it. And why does this happen? Because if your email fails, you know you can't get email, and you know real fast. If your mobile phone fails, you know, because you can't make a phone call, and you know even faster. Whereas if security controls fail, you have no idea until you find out you've been hacked and owned and your data's out on the internet. So as I said, security controls fail, they fail often, and they fail silently. So organizations are looking to change this paradigm. So most organizations are looking to use the MITRE ATT&CK framework. If you're not familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, you really need to get a handle on this if you want to be a trusted advisor, if you want to be having a fresh, intelligent conversation, a consultant type conversation with your customers, and be able to unlock the big services dollars and high margin. Now, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, if you're not familiar with it, please go to attackiq.com, go to our academy, and there's 1 hour, 90-minute sessions on MITRE ATT&CK, breach and attack simulation, and purple teaming, which I'm going to come on to. So what the MITRE ATT&CK framework is it's a matrix, and it looks at the adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge of the way that the hackers get into organizations. And so if you test your environment using the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, then you're less likely to get owned. So enter AttackIQ with our security optimization platform. And what is it that we're doing that makes us different and makes us a fresh new conversation for you to have with your customers? So first and foremost, we provide an enterprise open SaaS-based cloud or on-prem platform that's designed to do continuous security testing and control validation across the complete enterprise in production in a safe, do no harm manner. AttackIQ's mission is to make the world a safe place to compute. And in order to do that, we need to bring the industry together. And we're doing that through our Preactive Security Exchange, where we have some of the largest vendors that many known to you. This isn't the complete list, but it's a highlight. And we work with those organizations where they use our technology to test their capability so that they can do well in the MITRE emulation evaluations, as an example. But more importantly, we're making sure that their technologies do what they say they are meant to do. And we work in conjunction with the MITRE Ingenuity Center for Threat-Informed Defense, the CTID. And this is where the MITRE ATT&CK framework or the matrix now lives. And as I said, we get these organizations and AttackIQ and MITRE all working together for the betterment of the community. So just talking about the community. So we've talked about our 3 Ps. We've talked about our platform. We've talked about our partnerships. And now we're going to sort of touch on the practice. So this is where Attack IQ invests most of our time and energy through our academy, where we're helping organizations develop the skills, both partners and customers, the skills and practices necessary to operationalize MITRE ATT&CK, operationalize Attack IQ, and operationalize all of the security technologies that you're providing your customers, and ensuring that they're doing what they say they're doing, and they're communicating effectively, and their people in the SOC are monitoring for the right things. Now, that a certain subset of our academy flows into our Informed Defenders community, where we've gamified the feedback loop. So we say to the community, look, you get X points if you'd come in and tell us what this new course looks like, and how we should improve it, or look at our strategy, look at our roadmap. And so we've got a big community there of 2,000 people. Then finally is the blueprints. So our blueprints are where we've worked with existing customers on how they have had success with MITRE and driven business outcomes that has improved their cybersecurity sort of program and their readiness and improve their security posture. How can we take those lessons learned and deliver those to new customers? So we're doing that in the form of blueprints, and I'll touch on those a little bit more. So we've touched on our platform, our partnerships, and our practice. Now, just want to touch on our architecture. Obviously, this is only sort of 15, 20 minutes, so it's a rapid overview for you. Please come to our booth, go to the Attack IQ website, get your colleagues and partners into Academy. You get CPE credits if you got CISP, if you've got the CISP certifications you're looking for, and so forth. So we have a platform, as I said, cloud or on-prem. It has an integration manager that integrates with the security technologies, and then our customers and partners drop test points into various parts of the customer's environment. And then we have the ability with our test points to, and this is a single test point. It's a single piece of code, so it's easy to deploy, easy to manage, easy to administer, easy to upgrade, and it has a number of testing modalities. So we can test using different modes. We can test the host, the server. We can test network. To see if we can reach certain command and control. We can come externally, try and do phishing coming into the organization. We can come internally, try and do exfiltration. We can do cloud testing, testing cloud configurations, whether that be Amazon, Azure, or Google. And as I said, components of this can be hosted. Components of it can be on-prem or in the cloud. So a very flexible, open standards, API-driven architecture that is very easy for customers to deploy. And as Stuart from IDC was saying, customers want to try before they buy, but this is a way of putting a technology in place that's not only going to give you good feedback around Attack IQ and MITRE, but it's also going to create sales opportunities for you, because it might show that their EDR is deficient or their SIM is not communicating correctly. So there could be some services to upgrade, or there could be some sales to even replace. So what is it that we're doing? We're helping customers transform their cybersecurity program and practices by providing them for the first time a complete decision support system that provides a closed loop feedback based on evidence on the efficacy and efficiency of their cybersecurity operations, so that we can help them answer questions. What's working? What's not working? Where should we invest next? We've invested. Did that investment work? And ultimately turn cybersecurity into a business enabler rather than a cost center and a fear center. As I said, we've developed our blueprints. These are treasure maps that help customers in an automated way, in a documented way, in a process-driven way, working with our partners from a services to deliver this, where customers can get to the business outcome, the pot of gold, much more rapidly, because they're following in the footsteps of very sort of sophisticated customers that have done this before them. Now, I mentioned Academy. We launched this mid last year. We've got nearly 12,000 cybersecurity professionals from 160 countries. That gives us an enormous amount of feedback. It's one of the biggest communities in the industry at the moment. I mentioned our Preactive Security Exchange, our partners. The only comment I'll make on these partners is while they have free access to our technology, many of them are paying customers where they're using Attack IQ in their red and purple teams. The Center for MITRE Ingenuity Center for Threat Informed Defense, this is the CTID. This is where we are a founding research partner, one of 3, and we work on many sort of strategic initiatives to help expand the MITRE attack matrix, the framework, and help drive further adoption in the community. And then I mentioned our Informed Defenders community, where we have 2,000, a subset of all of those above. But most recently, we've introduced our Informed Defenders Executive Council, where we have CIO and CISOs, Chief Information Officers, Chief Information Security Officers, both customers and not customers of Attack IQ. They sit on a board and they meet regularly to discuss subjects, and then we sit in on those briefings. We don't run them, they run them, but we sit in as a fly on the wall, and then we provide that feedback to our customers in terms of CISOs and CIOs, CFOs, CEOs, in terms of what best practice is. And an example is that at the moment the discussion is how does the board, or how do the CISOs and CIOs communicate with the board, and how can they do that more effectively? And it's a very compelling discussion point for most of your C-level executives and your customers. So why would you take Attack IQ into your customers over any other technology? Because you can have a new conversation, but more importantly, we win more than 80% of the time. So look for breach and attack simulation, look for MITRE attack sort of operationalization, look for continuous security control or control validation, control testing as some of the buzzwords you want to look for. So just in conclusion, what is it that we're talking about here? We're talking about a blue ocean opportunity. What does a blue ocean opportunity mean? Well, a red ocean is where a piece of meat's in the water and all the sharks are having a feeding frenzy and fighting over that one piece of meat. Think about the piece of meat as your commodity AV upgrade. All the partners fighting over it, no margin, no differentiation. Today, we're talking about innovation with Westcon. We're talking about next generation SOC. We're talking about next generation technologies. So if you want to get with the program, you need to skill up and be having a much more intellectual conversation with your customers, but more importantly, looking for blue ocean opportunities where you're not fighting over it with all the other sharks. You've got all this blue ocean to go after. Attack IQ is a blue ocean opportunity. What is it that CISOs have to do? They have to design, build, and operate an effective and efficient cybersecurity program. Attack IQ can help them do that with our partners in conjunction with the Westcon NGS team, and we can help your customers move beyond the basic pen testing and vulnerability management and this sort of commodity, sort of superficial analysis of their environment, to doing it on a much more broad scale and elevating their program. What's in it for you? Well, you can go and have these new conversations with your customers. As I said, talk to them about breach and attack simulation, security optimization, cybersecurity transformation. And what you're going to get out of it is you can enter into new clients in one of the toughest times in history from an economy perspective. You can actually attract new customers because your competitors might not get onto this and they might not be having this conversation. You can drive services revenue, you can drive upsell, cross-sell, and ultimately you can drive managed security services. So please get all your teams, get onto Academy, start getting skilled up. We've got a great registration program. Please introduce us to your accounts because they don't know we exist at the moment. That's what a blue sea opportunity is. And then we just had our SKO and our theme was the Matrix. We made a little video for our partners, which we're going to share with you now to end on before the break. And I just want to thank you all for listening to this. Thank you for your time, and look forward to working with you and helping you grow your business. So if you'd play the video for us, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Many thanks to all the presenters, and I think the last one definitely was a great one, Ross. And as you also mentioned, please go and visit the booths if you have some more time. And now let's go back to the auditorium and listen to the next session. Thanks all for joining.